Good morning. As usual, we have multiple things going on this morning. Some of our members need to try to take some votes in here and then go to other committees, so we have to share. We'll go ahead and get started, and we'll call the roll.
Representative All.
Here.
Representative Callaway. Representative Kleins.
Here.
Representative Dixon. Representative Pfister.
Here.
Representative Graham. Representative Hale.
Here.
Representative Hart. Representative Kim King.
Present.
Representative Cook.
Here.
Representative McPherson. Representative Neighbors.
Here.
Representative Pollock. Representative Pratt. Representative Rayburn. Representative Reed. Representative Stalker. Representative Stevenson. Representative Tate. Representative Thomas.
Present.
Representative Tipton. And Chairman Heath.
Yes,
We have a quorum.
we do have a quorum.
Yes.
So welcome to the fourth meeting of the House Standing Committee on Agriculture. And why don't we just get right into it? Senate Bill 281 is first on the list, and I see our sponsor approaching with confidence that this is going to go smoothly.
Everything always goes smoothly in your committee.
That's the way we like it. I have great assistance. So,
I wish. Can you loan them to me? Did I say that? Is this thing on?
I don't think you need a mic, but
You're right. You're right. Jason House, First Senate District. Appreciate you having me. This is a bill back in, I believe, the 2014 session. The legislature tasked us, with the department, with coming up with an alternate fuel strategy. We purchased a bunch of alternate fuel vehicles. But there was no strategy, so 7 years later, they finally got around to that. So now we have to go and pass a bill for the implementation of this strategy. In looking through this is obviously good for Kentucky agriculture, for Kentucky ag producers. We produce biodiesel and ethanol here in the state.
we have a motion and a second on the bill. So we like simple one-page bills.
I'm all about brevity and simplicity, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Any
you.
questions or comments from our committee? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Representative All.
Aye.
Representative Callaway.
Yes.
Representative Kleins.
Yes.
Representative Dixon. Representative Pfister.
Yes.
Representative Graham.
Yes.
Representative Hale.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative King.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Cook. Representative McPherson.
Yes.
Representative Neighbors.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Representative Pratt. Representative Rayburn. Representative Reed. Representative Stalker.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson.
Yes.
Representative Tate. Representative Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Tipton. And Chairman Heath.
Yes.
Motion it passes.
The bill passes with favorable expression. Same too should pass on the House floor. Congratulations, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Yes, sir. Moving right on to House Bill 384. Most of us know you guys, but for the record, we'll turn your mics on and introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Myron Dossett, 9th District.
Good morning. I'm Kimmy Ishmael with Community Farm Alliance.
Good morning. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm happy that you have asked me to come here this morning. I'm going to present House Bill 384, which will establish the Healthy Farm and Food Innovation Board and specify membership and set forth the duties of that board. It will consist of 13 members. The Ag Commissioner will be the chair. Secretary of Health and Family Services will be on that, and then there will be 11 members that are appointed from outside organizations. Also had a conversation yesterday, Mr. Chairman, and I am going to be looking at doing a floor amendment on this to bring someone in that works with the our protein industry, and we'll remove one of these appointees right here and have someone come in that deals with livestock also. And now I'll let Ms. Ishmael share some of her views on this.
Yes, so the Healthy Farm and Food Innovation Fund, this would create a structured state fund that would be capable of receiving state, federal, and private philanthropy funds to help Kentucky address food and nutritional security while helping our Kentucky farmers.
And I would point out there is a pamphlet in your folders for committee members if you haven't
Yes.
noticed it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Chairman. Yes, and applicants to this fund are required to use Kentucky-grown products, so this would help put money back into our farmers' pockets while expanding their businesses. Also, this would specifically match grants, so a lot of grants that these programs use require matching funds. So that's what this fund would do, would help this match for different programs that help farmers, local producers, seniors, children and WIC participants, SNAP participants. This includes programs like Kentucky Double Dollars, if you're familiar with that, the Seniors Farmers Market Nutrition Program, as well as Fresh RX for Moms. These are all different programs that this fund could definitely stabilize, sustain, and keep going to help our farmers and hopefully expand and help, those in need as well that are dealing with food insecurity. And we know that about 162,000 of those that are food insecure in Kentucky are children. So we are looking to hopefully bolster any program that would help these programs. So House Bill 384 would build upon Kentucky's current momentum, creating stability and new opportunities for direct farm impact food access programs, such as Kentucky Double Dollars, and it would pave the way for additional new efforts that support the vitality of Kentucky agriculture and the health of Kentuckians. I do just want to point out, these programs are not only helping our farmers and our people, our Kentuckians, but it's helping our economy as well. Like the chairman pointed to the one-pager, we do have some research on there about some of the programs. The return on investment for Kentucky Double Dollars was $8.45 to $1. That was done by SEDIC out of UK, and it was very exciting to see how great these programs are helping not only the people in our communities, but our economy, our local economy as well.
Motion on the bill.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we have a couple of members so far that either have a question or a comment. We'll start with Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I love this idea, and so you're saying that you're going to have a floor amendment, and that member is probably going to replace one of these. I was just wondering if you had any idea, because I really like this list.
Yes, I was looking at someone from the Beef Council.
Oh, but did you say it was going to replace one of the people in
One
here?
of the members.
Which member do you think you'll
we
replace?
haven't decided. I was going to speak with Kimmy on this and
Yeah.
make a choice of which
Okay.
one we would replace.
All right. Well, good list so far. Good bill. Thanks.
Thank you. And then next, Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Dawson and Kimmy, thank you all for being here. The title of the bill states it's an appropriation, but I know why it states it's an appropriation. That's Section 4, just because it's not appropriating money, correct?
No, this will just create the mechanism in place because of this not being a budget year. We just wanted to make sure we
Sure.
looked at getting the mechanism in place for the future.
And if I could expand on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
In Section 4, it says that the fund would be monies received from state appropriations, grants, and federal funds. Have you given any thought to adding from private funds? There may be private businesses or groups that might want to contribute to this.
I
That
think
might-
it would be a great idea to add that. I think so.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Representative Thomas.
Appreciate you over here, Myron. I'm sitting where you usually are. It's hard because you just hear voices there. We appreciate y'all bringing this there. Just this last weekend, over the last 6 years, I've been helping with the Feed in Kentucky food distribution down in Hopkinsville, and we had an 18-wheeler filled with 17 pallets. I think there was 6 of fresh produce on there in the middle of winter. And that just means so much to the communities, and I think this is a great start, and it can even, better a lot of these programs, and we appreciate you bringing this to the table. Thanks.
Representative Graham.
I like this idea. My only concern is the possibility that it can get through the session. What's the possibility? Do you think that this can get through?
Fingers are crossed.
Like everything else?
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Graham. Fingers are crossed. Of course, as we're getting late, but the goal was to get have the bill heard, and if we're not able to get it through this session, we will refile it over the summer, late summer, early fall.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? And we had this conversation in my office, but for the benefit of the group, if we could go over it again, I guess the question I had for you was it's not necessarily a duplication of services or competing with other agencies that are already involved in this. Could you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. Yes, this is not competing with anything. These are just trying to lift up and help out programs, mostly incentive programs, food prescription programs that help people who use government assistance. It's not trying to compete with anything, just lift up those programs that connect farmers to food insecure people.
Okay, thank you. And if there's nothing else, I think we're ready to take the vote. We'll call the roll.
Representative All.
Aye.
Representative Callaway.
Yes.
Representative Klein.
Yes.
Representative Dixon. Yes. Representative Pfister.
Yes.
Representative Graham.
Yes.
Representative Hale.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Kim King.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative McPherson.
Yes.
Representative Neighbors.
Yes.
Representative Pollock. Yes. Representative Pratt.
Yes.
Representative Rayburn. Representative Reed. Representative Stalker.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson.
Yes.
Representative Tate. Representative Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Tipton.
Yes.
And Chairman Heath.
Yes. So congratulations, unanimous, and we'll see what happens next.
Once again, I want to say thank you to the chairman and to the committee members. I do miss seeing you. Of course, this year I'm no longer on the Ag Committee, something that I had been on for the last 16 years. I do miss being able to spend time with you, but I think I will be a part of the committee during the interim. So look forward to seeing each of you. Thank you.
Good
Thank
to
you
have
all
back.
so much.
You're welcome. Just so we can tidy up some housekeeping, we had a motion on the bill, but I don't know who did the second. Pick one. All right. So next we'll move on with a presentation, question and answer time from our revenue cabinet. Welcome, gentlemen. And while you're getting situated, let me preface your being here. This is a result of another meeting we were in, and there was several questions, and you guys had the opportunity to answer those questions and clear up some things. And I ask you to come and talk to our committee, educate us on some confusion that's going on out there in the ag world. And I'll give one example. One of the reasons we had the meeting, we had a implement dealer call and said, we have parts going on a piece of equipment that are tax exempt, but the labor is being charged sales tax. So we ask if you guys could clear that up for us. So if you'll introduce yourself for the record, make sure your mic is on, the green button will be lit up, and then we'll start from there.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Richard Dobson. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Sales and Excise Taxes within the Department of Revenue.
And good morning, I'm Tim Bennett. I'm the Director of the Division of Sales and Use Tax within the Department of Revenue.
Welcome, and you're welcome to start wherever you like. I threw that out there just to kind of bring the members up to speed on how you ended up here.
Right. Appreciate that, and appreciate our previous conversations and the invitation today. And really, the focus, we don't really have a presentation today, but we wanted to give a little bit of an update on the program related to the agricultural exemption number authorizations. And back in 2020, the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 148 that didn't change the exemptions for agricultural provisions for farmers. So whatever was exempt then is exempt today. But the change was requiring farmers to actually pre-register and receive an exemption number. And then there was another provision passed in actually last session, Senate Bill 121, to change the deadlines to give time for farmers to continue to apply. And so effective January 1 of this year, farmers are required, in order to make purchases that qualify for that are provided within statute to be exempt, they have to have this. They have to be pre-registered and have received a agricultural exemption number. So at this point, and really we started issuing those numbers late 2020, I guess it was. So it's been going on now for over 2 years. We've issued over 35,000 exemption numbers to in-state farmers. We've issued over 1,000 numbers to out-of-state farmers. Right now we have approximately 2,500 applications, but most of those, the largest percentage of those applications have been received since February of this year and then in March. So, we thought by the 1st of January of this year we'd have most of the applications, we would have received them and have issued the account numbers, but we continue to be surprised that we're still getting applications. So it's a one-page application. We've got a process in place. One of the provisions in the legislation also required us to set up an online search function, so that either the farmer or the retailer that is trying to verify whether the customer is registered or not can go online and do a search and verify that account. So that's in place. We get applications electronically and on paper. Some of the questions we've been asked, and we talked with Chairman Heath before, retailers, of course, this is something new for the farmers and the retailers. In most cases, these customers, the farmers, already have a standing business relationship with these retailers. They already have the information on file. They have certificates on file. So really, it's a fairly simple process where they just give them now their agricultural exemption number, and that number is added to the file, to the record that was already in place. But some have questions about, well, what does the farmer have to provide to the retailer? And the provision in the legislation, which is under 139-481, they just have to verify or give them the number, actually, or put it on a certificate, which is our streamlined certificate. They can use that certificate, or they can just give the number. But every retailer may have a little bit different procedure. There have been some questions about, does the retailer have to get a copy of the letter that we issue? When we issue the numbers, we issue a letter, a physical letter goes out, or by email, depending on the circumstance, to the farmers. And so some retailers say they want a copy of that letter. That is not a requirement in legislation. That's not anything that we require from an administrative standpoint. But that's an issue really between the retailers and the individual farmers. Regarding, I'll let Tim talk a little bit about the out-of-state farmers in just a moment. We had the question about that. But in regard to Chairman Heath's comment about repairing a tractor, for example, the repair parts are exempt. any labor. There is in our statute, from a standpoint of sales tax, if an item is taxable, is it subject to sales tax, and then there's a charge for installation, then that installation charge is also subject to sales tax. But in the case of agricultural exemptions, these repair parts are exempt. So if the part is exempt, the installation related to that repair is also exempt, because the labor, any taxability of the labor is treated the same as the part itself. So that was a little bit of a confusion. So the answer there, of course, the labor is not taxable, and neither are the repair parts. So Tim, did you want to go ahead and explain the issue? Because we had some questions about out-of-state farmers coming in to the state after this has been implemented.
Yeah, as Richard had said earlier, we have issued over 1,000 exemption to out-of-state farmers. Specifically, we know this is probably coming into effect more in Tennessee. Tennessee has had a program in place for years where they required farmers to register, and Kentucky did not until January 1st, 2023. So when a Tennessee farmer comes into the state, we're making them get registered with us and get a Kentucky account number, because Kentucky exemptions are different than Tennessee exemptions. We don't have the same laws. They exempt some things that we don't. And we did check with our counterparts at the Department of Revenue in Tennessee and the Department of Revenue in North Carolina. And if a Kentucky resident goes into their state and makes a purchase, they make them register with their state. So we feel like we're being consistent, treating their residents the same way they're treating ours when we go out of state. It's not really too much of an issue if you have someone that's in, making ongoing purchases on a regular basis. If they're in Tennessee, they're right across the border. They're willing to register. We haven't had too much issues about that, but we have had some questions from people that are coming in from out of state, maybe for auctions. Maybe they don't know to the day of the sale that they get up. They decide they want to come in the state and they want to make a purchase at an auction, and they haven't registered. So we have had some conversations trying to get some information out to the auctioneers. We feel like the best way to handle that is, if they know that they're going to be doing an auction and they have the possibility people might be coming in from out of state, go ahead and advertise ahead of time. But if they come here, they're going to need to get the Kentucky number and have it ready when they come to the auction. So if they decide to make a purchase, they'll already have their tax exempt number. But I think that's going pretty well. I think the retailers understand why we're doing it, because Tennessee and Kentucky, North Carolina and Kentucky, we don't all have the same exemptions. There might be something exempt in Tennessee that when they make the purchase here in Kentucky, it's not exempt. Or there might be a farmer that's exempt in Tennessee that when he comes into Kentucky, he wouldn't be exempt in Kentucky. So that's why we've been having those questions.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line there is that, when you're in Kentucky, then Kentucky law applies. And, we're not treating anybody differently. The customer is the customer, and if you're claiming an agricultural exemption in Kentucky, then it's our law, and everyone is treated the same way. I would just go back and mention the 2,500 applications that we have right now in inventory that we're continuing. We're issuing account numbers, exemptions every day. It's a one-page application. The best documentation to provide is for the farmer to submit that application and basic information about the address and so forth, but also to include the copy of their Schedule F to document that they are in the business of farming. And if a complete application is there, then it is a very simple process. Some of the inventory is tied to applications that are incomplete, applications that don't have documentation regarding, we have some that are completely new farmers, so they haven't even filed a return yet. That doesn't mean they're not eligible, but we may need to get a little more information from them to verify that. So,
Thank you. Appreciate the information, and it has generated several questions, as I had anticipated it would. And we'll just start with Representative All.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a question around when the law passed and the, advertisement of the application process. Because this is a new process at that time to Kentucky farmers. I'm thinking about my granddaddy, who's 91, who runs 400 head of beef cattle down in Davis County. this would have been new to him. So was there proactive advertisement to our current farmers that they needed to do this, and how did we advertise that to them?
That's a good question, Representative All. I was looking back. We do have a newsletter, a Kentucky sales tax facts that goes out to retailers. So we did also talk with the Retail Federation, gave them guidance, worked with them. They provided, they actually drew up information to get posted at farm supply stores. So because, how do we communicate to the individual farmers? That's a good question. So we worked with the Retail Federation. They had flyers that got posted. We've sent out at least 4 times in various newsletters that go out. Those go to retailers. We've worked with the Farm Bureau. Tim worked directly. We provided the applications. We have posted FAQs on our website that give links directly to the application and so forth. But the Farm Bureau went out in their various meetings over the course of the year, working with various groups. They provided applications. Tim, you went also. You actually physically went. You want to?
Yeah, that was the first. I think it was the first day of this year. First work day of this year. We were in Bowling Green for a meeting. I think the agricultural commissioner was there, and there was several people from the Farm Bureau to present the information. Also we were there all day, handed out applications, got a lot of questions. So we have tried to be proactive, and we do appreciate the help from the, like I said, the Retail Federation and the Farm Bureau. They both work very hard to try to help us get the information out.
Just one follow-up. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. That's good. That will cover the majority of Kentucky farmers, but if I'm understanding correctly, there was no, here's all the Schedule Fs in Kentucky and no proactive, statewide mailed communication to farmers that this was now a requirement?
No, we didn't. We did not make a direct mailing just to farmers on that. We, mentioned direct mailings. Of course, in the midst of all this, we also have been implementing a lot of other changes that you guys have provided opportunities for us to do. So we've been sending out a lot of direct mailings, but that was not one that we did. We, again, trying to figure out level of effort and how most efficiently to do that, and that we didn't really. I don't even think we considered that extensive of a mailing, but and we do realize we're still getting calls. This is the first I've heard about this.
Right.
And
Well, that's the origin of my question. I mean, I know
Right.
Kentucky Farm Bureau has a big membership, but it's not 100% inclusive. And look like you have the tax records of everybody who claims to be a farmer in Kentucky, that you could send out a postcard notice that this is something required for them to continue receiving the same tax exemptions they had in the past. So.
Thank you. We have 4 other members that's requested to either speak or ask a question. Do any of you 4 individuals have to go to another committee? I can let you go first if you do. Okay. So we'll just keep going down the line. Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here today. I always appreciate the clarifications. If I heard correctly, so 35,000 farmers have pre-registered. My question kind of parallels Representative All's, and there are 2,500 in the queue. Do we have any idea how many we still need to pre-register? How are our efforts going along those lines?
We don't have an exact count. We feel like we've gotten definitely the majority, but like I said, we're still a little bit surprised by how many applications we've received since January, because officially as of January 1, in order to claim the exemption, the farmer has to have an agricultural exemption number. But even with Schedule Fs, some of the farmers, you can't equate that necessarily with the exact number there. There may be multiple partners. Sometimes they elect to get their own exemption number. But we do feel, I think we're comfortable in saying that we certainly have the vast majority of account numbers that or farmers that qualify for account numbers, that they have received the account.
Right. I think when we started, we estimated about 35,000, but we're still getting more. So I guess maybe our estimate was too low, but that's what we
Excellent.
estimated
Just
at the
a
start.
final comment, if I may.
Yes.
Session is winding down, and most of us as legislators will start talking to our communities about what happened in session. So maybe we can include this if we're in a rural area or think there are farmers in attendance. So would staff have maybe some links that we can share with folks as we get back home and in the districts, and maybe we can direct people on the right path if they haven't already done so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative McPherson.
Yes, so first question I'd have, you talked about your list of things that are exempt. Do we have a list? Is there a place we could go to get that list? Is there, and is that list, could it be expanded? Does it include everything we think it should?
Well, that's a good question, and that's certainly your prerogative as legislators to determine what may be exempt or taxable. There are a lot of exemptions, sales and use tax exemptions for farmers, farm machinery, for example, the seed, and there's different on-farm exemptions. But we do have a regulation that we promulgated. It's been recently revised, but it does give examples of the various exemptions in place. It's 103 KAR 30:091. So that is our farm regulation on. It's just sales to farmers. It gives the exemptions. It lists things that are taxable. So that's an open question, but all of the farm exemptions are also listed in 139-480. That's the statutory authority behind the exemptions, and there are a number of them. One of the exemptions for farmers, we mentioned repair parts, for example. There are a lot of exemptions within our sales tax law that exempt machinery but don't exempt repair parts. But for farmers, they have a broader exemption. So in that regard.
Yes.
I've been asked, even with tobacco products like trays and stuff, are they on that list, or tobacco trays or float bed trays?
Well, the exemption for farmers is listed related to the machinery itself. So it's not always exempt. It does not always exempt some of the consumables. That's correct. No.
And one other question for you.
Yes, sir.
So I've had constituents, I know you guys say you have 2,500 in the queue. What's the average time if you turn in all your forms correctly? What kind of average time are you having for turnover? I've had a lot of people call me and say, I want to buy a tractor and I haven't done this yet, and how long should I have to wait?
Well, that is a fair question, and we knew we would get that question, and it does depend because our inventory fluctuates. If in January we were, if we're trying to do first in and first out, but again, yesterday I had which happens on a periodic basis. Somebody calls, and maybe one of your constituents, we get the referral, so I send it down to our staff, or Tim does. And if it's a completed application, I got the inquiry yesterday. The account number was issued this morning. So we're not, encouraging you to do that. But if there is an application that has been in the queue for a while, then please let us know about that. But the one in particular, if I remember correctly, it was submitted on the 8th of March, and we issued it today because there was the inquiry. Now, normally it's going to be a 2 to 3 week period, and if it's a completed application. Now, if it's not a completed application, then we're going to be following up with a letter or an inquiry, an email, and so there's a little more lag time there. So we've got, again, there are various factors involved, but there is a quick turnaround, and most of the applications that we have now, again, as I said, have just been received in February and March of this year.
Thank you for your work, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your all's presentation today. It's timely. I get a lot of questions about this. Got a good friend in the used farm implement business. And I want to dig into the out of state. Does a person have to farm in Kentucky or live in Kentucky? Or do we honor anyone from any state who fills out a Kentucky exempt and is qualified.
We will honor anyone from out of state that is qualified under Kentucky law.
Under Kentucky
Yeah.
law.
So as long as they're exempt under Kentucky law, then we will give them an exemption, yes.
So an out-of-state exemption would not count for
Correct.
the exemption. They have to have a Kentucky exemption.
Correct, yes.
And that's probably a message we need to get out to, because a lot of stuff's going on online. They're having online auctions. People are selling all over coming from all over the country. So I'm sure there's a lot of confusion. I think it might be good to get out, reinforce with our implement dealers that they have to have a Kentucky exemption.
For example, in Kentucky, horse farmers are not exempt.
Sure,
So,
that's correct.
I mean, in other states they may be. But they have, we wouldn't give them an exemption if they came here, if they were a horse farmer. But if they meet our laws or our statutes, then yes, we'll give them an exemption.
Sure. If I could add one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I've had my exemption a while, but I had a little difficulty getting it because I voted on the bill that authorized it back in 2020, so I knew what was in it, and I knew about the options. And it says an or, so I think I sent in a Schedule F. But I got a letter back asking me to send in the other two qualifications as well. So, and when Senator Givens came back with follow-up legislation, I asked him that too. And are our staff properly trained now on that?
I would say yes. We again, sometimes when you look at the Schedule F, you can't really just go by the Schedule F.
Okay.
I mean, depending on what the farmer's doing, and we do sometimes have questions, but they should be properly trained. Like I said, after
All right.
after 35,000, I
Okay.
hope they
Thank
are.
you. Thank
and
you.
I'll work hard to make sure that they are.
Representative Callaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a comment and a question, if that's okay. Alrighty. The first, I'll make a comment. I don't think it's any secret that Kentucky is doing tax modernization and continue to move forward with that aggressively. And I think it's important for these types of conversations to be had, just to make sure as we go through this that we look at all of these unintended consequences that could possibly be out there. And so I appreciate this information and bringing it into our mind, and with our colleagues here as we are going to the budget process again next year, just making sure that we look at this, because we know that there are so many moving parts and pieces that could affect farmers and their exemptions. And so I'm committed to keep doing that, and so I appreciate that. You discussed a little bit about the out-of-state purchases, and that's something that I've heard a lot about as well, people that are getting involved in that. And a lot of times it is a decision that happens quickly. They decide to make a purchase or whatever the case may be, and they're from out of state. Would it be plausible, and I know a lot of times when we get tax money into the state, we don't seem to want to have to give that back up, but if we passed a law that would give a period of time so that if someone decided to do business in the state of Kentucky, that they would pay taxes on that, but it would give them, an estimated amount of time or whatever we set that to be, so that they could go ahead and file and get get that exemption through the state of Kentucky, and then maybe be reimbursed those dollars.
Let's just elaborate right now as far as the way the process works today. If a out-of-state farmer came in and made a purchase and did not have the agricultural exemption number that Tim was describing, then tax should be paid. But that doesn't mean that there's no recourse, because the tax is paid to the Kentucky retailer. The out-of-state farmer could still apply for the exemption number. And once that exemption number is received, then that farmer could request a refund of the tax from the retailer. The retailer would have to file an application with us. So there is a remedy in place. That's not the ideal way to do it, but there is a provision already, a procedure already in place to address, I think, what you've described there, Representative. And also as far as out-of-state farmers, Tim alluded to this, mentioned that we have talked with the Public Protection Cabinet that oversees the auctioneering board, because that seemed to be with auctioneers. So we're working right now on some FAQs to provide to the board that they can, under their prerogative, provide that guidance out to their membership. So that's another thing we're trying to do as far as communications.
Yes, sir. And I didn't even realize there was recourse, so that's good to know, and maybe something we can think about in the future to make that streamlined. Thank you.
Thank you. That got everybody on the list. I did have one question that came in by text. So on the exemptions, the dollar revenue, so pre-qualifying folks for exemptions, can you see significant savings? I guess are we having more revenue now that individuals have had to file for a number? I know that one of the intent of the bill was to weed out bad actors. I spent 15 years on the retail side of it, and as long as they were willing to fill out the application at the counter and put their driver's license number or social security number on it and sign it, we put it in a file and we treated them as exempt. It was on the honor system, basically, unless they got caught. So we were trying to eliminate that. Are you seeing an increase in revenue after doing all this, or is it too early?
Well, there is an increase in revenue. Sales tax receipts are up, as you all know. How to quantify that is a totally different question, though. Anecdotally, we've heard, and yes, certainly, Chairman Heath, there's the expectation that, with this requirement in place now, those that are applying are pre-qualified. So that's going to, reduce or hopefully almost completely eliminate, the false claims. But there's so many variables out there. The sales tax receipts come in from the retailers and farm suppliers, but we have multiple changes in our tax code that went into effect January 1. There's a new exemption, for example, on prescription and prescription drugs. So that's an increase, but that's a decrease specifically with that new exemption. There's an increase here, but there are other variables. It really would be impossible to quantify it or to. We agree with what you are stating there as far as an overall effect, but how to actually quantify that with an amount, that would really be impossible.
Okay, that's fair. And I forgot about the extra exemptions animal health was one of those, very important to our livestock folks. But I just want to point out to the members, we've had this conversation. I wanted you guys to come and share the information with all the committee members so we can go back to our districts and help educate folks. I'm sure we're all getting calls at some time or another with specific questions, and we'll try to find the answers to those and help you guys out all we can. Thank you for coming. Wanted to point out to our members, this is our last.
Thank you very much.
Our last regular scheduled meeting. I'm not anticipating any special called meetings. I wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you to our staff, to Stefan and Hillary and Kelly and Susan. Obviously, we couldn't do what we do if they didn't do what they do. So they do all the work and we get the camera time. I think it's a great deal. This meeting's adjourned.